following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia in Fury. A joy to be with you all once again, and a joy to be here, right now with my guests at this time. You guys, you know that I've been interviewing a lot of guys from Florida and that scene back in the day, the guys that were just lighting it up, all on fire back in the day. And this guy right here, right now, the accolades speak for themselves. Former NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, NWA Florida Tag Team Champion, FOW Heavyweight Champion, IPW Tag Team Champion twice over, and four-time IPW Heavyweight Champion. He's the one, he's the only, he's Mr. Mike Sullivan. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm good, sir. I'm still waking up, but I'm excited, thrilled to have the chance to talk to you today. And Mike, as per usual on the show, the first question is, when you were a young man, how did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
Well, the first time I remember seeing wrestling was Channel 9, Long Island, New York. So I was a WWF guy in the beginning, and that's where it started from. And I just remember it came on at about 10 a.m. on Saturday. And the first time I ever saw it, I saw guys like Bob Backlund, Jimmy Snuka, the Wild Samoans, Andre the Giant, all those guys, Magnificent Morocco, Pedro Morales. And, once you see wrestling and if you're a fan, you remember, and that's it. And I just got sucked right in. And, and I think it'd be on for about an hour, and then me and my brother would beat each other up, seeing if we could emulate the moves and stuff. So it was great. And that was back, I don't know, I was probably 10 or 11. And then, once you, just a little bit of back then in the early 80s, you were a fan of the area that you grew up in. So up in the Northeast, we had WWF. And then I just remember my first time, like after going and watching wrestling or watching it on TV, we'd go to the local newsstand. And that was the first time I ever recognized that they had wrestling magazines. So then we would get the wrestling magazines, and then you could see all the other wrestling throughout, like the South, Mid-South, Texas. That's how you kept up. And that's how I was introduced to the guys like Ric Flair, NWA, Dusty Rhodes. And, it sucked me in for a long time.
It seems to be the case with a lot of guys I've had on the shows. As soon as they saw it, that was it. It was the same for me. The moment I saw it, it changed everything. Basketball was now meant nothing to me.
Right. Yeah.
It's all about wrestling.
Yeah, it screws everything up, wrestling. It does. But it's great. It's we call it the bug. You got bit by the bug, and that's it.
That's it. I mean, I haven't watched it like properly, like every week since like 2005, and I'm still obsessed with it to this day, just based off what I liked back in the day. I'm still like that. So it's funny how it works, even if it's not something that you're really into watching every single week anymore. Still,
right. And then the internet is just great because you get to see all the old stuff, and you get to hear about the territories. So now there's been so much of the older stuff from the 70s and 60s. You can find it online now, and it's amazing. It's great.
Exactly. Who needs the current stuff when you can just watch the old stuff?
Right.
Okay, so 10, 11 years old was when you first started getting into it as a fan. Time wears on, you become a teenager, you become a young man. When does it, at what point do you think to yourself, you know what, I'm still obsessed with this thing, I've got to figure out how to get in the business? How do you figure out how to get into the business and begin training? How does that come about?
Yeah, so I was in '89. I went into the Navy for 4 years, and then in '93 I got out. My family was still living up in New York, and I helped it was getting rough for my grandparents up there, so they needed a warmer climate. So my dad said, "Well, we're going down to Florida if you want to give it a shot." And I'm like, "All right, yeah, I'll come down." I didn't even think about wrestling, right? So I had just gotten out of the Navy, veteran, just still kind of lost, not knowing what I was going to do, and came down here. And my brother came with us, and we started, lifting weights and stuff. And at the gym, I'll never forget. It's in Largo, Florida, and there was a world gym there. And you'd look at all the they'd have pictures of all the guys, the muscle guys and the bodybuilders and stuff on the walls. And there's a lot of wrestlers on the wall, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So never thought about it or anything. And went to we were working out one day, and I went to the water fountain and looked on the billboard, and there it was, a flyer for Mad Dog's Palace School of Professional Wrestling. And I was the only one at the water fountain. I went back to my brother and I go, "Hey man, there's a wrestling school flyer here." I said, "We're not really doing anything. What do you want to do? You want to give it a shot?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So my brother's name is Kevin Sullivan, and no relation to the other Kevin Sullivan, but he's the one that called the trainer of the school, and he said, "Yeah, my name's Kevin Sullivan, and we want to try out for wrestling or find out how we get in the ring and stuff." And the guy blew us off, who was actually Brett Sawyer, brother of Mad Dog Sawyer, Buzz Sawyer. And he blew us off because he thought we were just ribbing him. He thought we were messing around because my brother said his name was Kevin Sullivan. So he thought it was just a joke. So it was like a couple months later, we finally called again and found out where it was and went there and started training.
Fantastic stuff. So please tell me about your experience training. I did some research and seen such a plethora of these great names that had a hand in training you. Tell me a little bit about that, and I guess what you learned most from that time.
Yeah. So well, that's when you learn that the first thing they tell you. I remember he gives you. Brett had a different way of training you, and a lot of them, they wouldn't even let you get in the ring, like over in Tampa, until you did 1,000 air squats, 1,000 push-ups, and other things. Well, Brett wasn't like that. I think he was just trying to get our money, which was okay. That means we got to go in the ring. So we got in the ring, and the first thing he does is he gave us a backdrop. He didn't tell us to tuck our head or anything. And the first thing you do is you tuck your chin on a backdrop. And so we hit, and it rang our bell, all of us. And there was a couple of us there. And he goes, and it's the one thing that always stuck with me was, he goes, "Well, wrestling ain't ballet." And I was like, "Okay, all right, here we go. Tuck my chin next time, because there's no sympathy out there. You do it right. You learn to do it right, or it's going to be a rough and probably short road for you." So that's how we started, and he trained us for quite a while, and that's where I started. And then I don't know, do you want me to tell you about the rest of the guys that trained me? I mean, yeah. It was like a good 3-year time period. So I started with Brett Sawyer, and then we moved on to Tommy Dreamer. Not Tommy Dreamer. Tommy.
Rogers.
Say that again.
Tommy Rogers?
Yes. As you can see, I've been hitting the head quite a few times. So Tommy Rogers, and Tommy was great. Tommy was, he was encouraging, he was a veteran. We saw him on TV back in the day, and he was just awesome. And he was the guy that first really wrestled with a cruiserweight with us. So, it was that kind of that strong style, but he was quick, and he was tough, and that was great. And then really the other guys that really formed my wrestling was the Bushwhackers. So I got to train with the Bushwhackers quite a bit. They were really cool to me, and their experience is just phenomenal. And just listening to them, that's how I really learned a lot about psychology, because you would just listen to them call the match and tell you how the match was going to go. And I'd heard it a couple of times prior to actually getting in the ring with them, and it was just phenomenal. Like, one would call the whole match and the other would call the finish, and that was it. And it was the same routine, but every match felt different. And those guys, I just can't thank enough. The Bushwhackers was really really instrumental in helping me with in-ring psychology. So that was great.
Excellent. Yeah, a big fan of the Bushwhackers. Okay, you do this training, you get help from other people here and there. You start to feel ready, I suppose. Tell me about the Freedom Ryder and your first match. Tell me a little bit about this character.
Well, the Freedom Ryder came about, we were big growing up in the in the 80s. We saw all the guys with the face paint, right? So the first guys that really affected us with face paint were the Road Warriors, and that was another changing point in our lives, was just watching them and saying, oh, okay, this is a whole new level. This is a whole different thing. And we loved that. And then, of course, we had Sting, and you had guys like the Great Muta. So we're like, all right, well, let's do the whole red, white, and blue thing, right? Because that was always, blonde hair, blue eyes, me and my brother. So doesn't get much more American than that. So, excuse me. We decided, all right, we'll paint our faces. We'll wear red, white, and blue. It's easy to get a good pop. USA, USA, get them going. And that was it. It worked well, and it kept us pretty popular, so on the local scene. So of course there's always a red, white, and blue guy in every town, but around here in Tampa we did pretty good with it. So
excellent. I wanted to ask you about your first impressions of Ron Niemi and being a part of IPW Hardcore.
All right, so the first time I met Ron Niemi, he actually called me and asked. So one of the things with the first guy that trained us, if he was not very well liked, we didn't know that at the time in a lot of the wrestling community. So we kind of got, or me myself, I was by myself at this time. So I was kind of blackballed just for training him. Didn't know any better, anything like that. And there was really two groups in the Tampa St. Pete area. There was the Tampa guys, and then there was the Pinellas County guys. And the Pinellas County guys were definitely not as polished as the Tampa guys. So those guys were coming out under Malenko and D. Malenko, and those guys were really taught very well. So this was about 4 or 5 years into me wrestling. So I really had to work my stuff. I really learned kind of in the ring. It was kind of like trial by error with the training. There were great guys, like I said, Tommy Rogers and Dave Sierra, Cuban Assassin. Those guys kind of took me under their wing and kind of kept me going and teach me some really good stuff and get me on the right path. And then I don't know who told Ron, maybe he had seen me or someone had told Ronnie about me. But he called me up and said, "Hey, you want to wrestle for him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. That'd be great." And really, he's the guy that kind of got me unblackballed and showed that, no matter who you're trained by, that doesn't mean that you're going to be like them. You know what I mean? That I was my own man, and he just decided, all right, I'm going to give you a shot. So he gave me a shot, and I always told Ronnie, we still speak, every once in a while, and I tell him, you always, ever since that first time, you'll always get the best of me, always get 110%. And I think that's why he kept me around. So that was
excellent. Yeah, that's cool. Awesome stuff. I always like to go down this road when I do my research and find out some of these TV matches that a lot of guys had, and I wanted to bring up World Championship Wrestling, and I'm going to list off the matches one by one, and if there's a story behind that experience, please indulge me. If there's not, we can just move on.
Sure.
The first one here, talk about walking into the Lions Den here. November 3rd, 1998, Lee County Civic Center in Fort Myers, Florida. You wrestle Scott Hall. I watched this match yesterday, and my friend Adam was also watching, and we kind of laughed at seeing this guy walk into the ring just so calmly when there was like 6 NWO guys just standing there.
Oh,
you know what's going to come. You know what's happening.
So and they tell you before the match, they're like, listen, the rest of us are going to get involved. I got the whole NWO out there. I got Scott Norton, some of the other guys. I just remember Scott Norton because he gave me a chop on the outside of the ring. I took a nice bump for him, and in the back he said, "Hey, great job, man. You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's part of the deal." So I thought it was great. But you're actually in there with a guy like Scott Hall. I was a nervous wreck. Right, I'm in here with the bad guy, and I just remember he's like, they tell you, they go, "Hey kid, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that," and I was grateful because he actually let me wrestle. We were jobbers, there's no two ways about it, but you always appreciated the guys that took care of you in the ring, these guys, because you're basically you're basically a bounce dummy for them, right? And he took great care of me in the ring, and he actually let me do some moves, which was awesome. He let me wrestle. We got to wrestle. I got to wrestle Scott Hall, and I always tell all the guys, because I might have been the only one that actually wrestled him of the guys I know, of the local guys. And I used to say, man, when he had me up in that razor's edge, all I could see was people. And it felt like it felt like I was 30 feet up in the air, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And it was just the easiest move of all time. And it was great, and I can't be thankful enough. I got a shot at to wrestle Scott Hall, especially with him just passing. I can say, yeah, I wrestled that guy.
Yeah, that's super cool. I would say he's probably my favorite of all time. And just when I watched the match, I thought it was comical because I was like, the referee knows that they're getting involved, but it's almost like at this point now with the NWO, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, and he's just when you get in there with some great ring generals, and for being a big guy, you would think he would be doing a lot of the following, but I think Scott Hall, he called a lot of his matches, and I just think he was great. Like one of my favorite matches is him and Shawn Michaels, for the Intercontinental title. You can't get better than that in that ladder match. So for my money.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say I too have taken a razor's edge before, not from Scott, but I know that feeling when you're up there.
Oh yeah,
It's a little daunting, but then you take the bump and it's not too bad.
yeah.
Okay, moving forward, December 15th in Palmetto, Florida, you take on Glacier. This was an interesting one. I watched this yesterday as well. How did you enjoy working with Glacier?
So he was all right. But the Glacier thing was funny, a little funny story. That back then they weren't doing no blood on TV, especially in WCW. There was no blood, and remember, I don't know his real name, but he's that referee they call Little Nate. He's the blonde-haired guy in WCW. He refereed that match. So we're in there, and Glacier had one of those metal or composite, whatever it was, knee brace, and he never dropped a knee. And he dropped a knee on my head, and he caught my head, and it started bleeding. So the referee goes, he's over there trying to cover it up, because he doesn't want to get in trouble. No one wants to get in trouble. He's like, hey, do something with that blood so that we can take this home and finish this match. So, I got the wrist tape on. So I'm sitting there just dabbing it up a couple of times. And then I think Glacier's move was that one kick, right? And I think he gave me that one kick, and that was it real quick, like after that. But that was just one of those things. He goes, yeah, I don't. And in the back, he goes, I don't really drop knees. I'm like, well, you dropped one today. So, okay.
Right.
And it was just something I remember from that match.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, because I did watch it, and I do remember, now that you mentioned, I do remember seeing him drop a knee like that, and I was like, don't usually see him do that. So
no, especially with the knee brace, use the other knee.
Next one, moving forward. I love it. To you, it might not seem like an important detail, but that minutia of you telling me that story, I love that. January 5th, 1999, Georgia Mountain Center in Gainesville, Georgia, against Kendall Windham. Rare singles TV win for Kendall during this time period. How did you like working with him?
Windham was great, man. Those no problem, and that was actually the second time I had wrestled him. So I had wrestled him a couple years back in a local deal down in Immokalee, Florida, and got to, he was played a heel back then, was great, wrestled back and forth, and so I had no problem with him in WCW. It was just, he remembered me, so he was, took care of me, was really cool, and that was it. Not much, because it was a good match, and he was no issues, no accidents in there, nothing stiff, just he was always there. And I think he hit me with that one, they always had the Windham lariat or clothesline, and that was his move, and it was nice and easy. So that was
very
it.
Cool.
Just make the bump look like he killed you, and then they're usually pretty happy.
Excellent stuff, bro. Yeah, and on the same day, I guess it was a taping, so you did this match which was airing on Worldwide, and the next matchup would air on Saturday night, where you team with Nick Dinsmore, taking on a team that everybody always sings the praises of, Scott and Steve Armstrong, the Armstrong brothers. How did you enjoy this one here?
That was great. Nick Dinsmore was great. The Armstrongs were great. And so everything went great during the match. It was totally the way it was supposed to be. Everything, they let us wrestle, they let us work, which was great. The one thing I remember about that TV taping or that night was, first of all, you get to, if you wrestled twice, you got paid twice. So that was great, right? Double payday. But this was when WCW was starting to kind of get loose and starting to fall apart a little bit. So in the back, they had, I don't know which one was first, if it was the Saturday night taping or the Sunday night taping, whatever, but they had all the matches listed for the one night. And they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. But you're wrestling this one, this one, this one, this one. And then about 15 minutes prior to the to starting the taping, they said, oh, we screwed up. It's actually, you're doing these nights, this night instead. So you're doing this match, this match, this match. So, and I just remember, you know, I was in the office, or where Arn Anderson would tell you what exactly was going on. He goes, hey, Sullivan, I need you to go out there and tell everyone that the TV tapings are reversed. So, you know, I'm just basically the hired help, enhancement talent. And they're like, you go out there and go tell it. So I'm telling whoever else was out there, all these superstars, hey man, they screwed up. It's this night and not this night. So we're doing this set of tapings and not this one. So everyone was calling their matches for the one night. So now they had to get back real quick and start calling their other matches and get with their partners for that night. So you could just see the chaos, and I had already been backstage to a WWE deal, and the difference in backstage was just night and day.
Yeah, I've heard as much from a lot of people, but that's great. That's interesting stuff. And this appeared to be the final time that you worked a WCW taping. Did you ever get any feedback? Were you hopeful that maybe they might be interested in signing you? I know this is getting to the point of WCW where shit was starting to get tough for the company. But yeah, did you feel like there was an opportunity there? And what was the feedback generally?
Well, you always hoped, you know, that I'd be lying if I didn't say, you know, and they'd be like, hey man, you know, come on back, we'll give you a shot, or you know, maybe we'll send you up to Atlanta or something like that. But at that time, after seeing it, like, you know, when I first started, I was very hopeful. And then once you kept going a couple of times, it would just started getting looser and looser. So, you know, WWE, their backstage is tight. I mean, they've got it down to a science. And in the beginning of WCW, it was, and then it just kind of started, you know, for lack of a better term, you hear the term, the inmates were running the asylum, and you could tell that the inmates were running the asylum. But at that time, I was just doing it, that last one for the payday, you know, and hoping that maybe go get over to Japan or down to Puerto Rico or anything like that. I wasn't even thinking about WWE either, but I got that shot too, so that was nice.
Yeah, awesome, bro. And I'll get to some of those WWE matches soon. I wanted to get back to your IPW hardcore days. Obviously, you were you know, a big part of the company, heavyweight champion during, you know, that kind of late 90s, early 2000s time period. I noticed that Freedom Ryder was no more as you enter the year 2000. The last match that I see you under that name, and it might not be, but this is just through my research, and the internet can be very unreliable sometimes, but I was lost to Barry Horowitz at Rage in the Cage 2000 in Crystal River, Florida. What led to you deciding to drop this gimmick and just become Mike Sullivan?
That was Ron Niemi. That was all Nimi. He's like, and you know, that's how you make the best heels, is you get one of the top baby faces in the area, and you turn on the fans, and there's one of your top heels now. So, and that's what I did. You know, got rid of the face paint, just became Marvelous Mike Sullivan, and that was all Ron Niemi. And I was like, are you sure, man? Because I was like one of the few guys that actually enjoyed being like a baby face. You know, everyone loves being a heel. It's so easy, and if you're good at it, it's just great. But I was like, I don't know. And he's like, no, it'll be good. Just give it a shot. I'm like, all right, you got it. So I did it, and it was great, man. I loved it. But you were just saying, you know, I got to wrestle Barry Horowitz, so that Barry was always a class act. He always treated me with respect, really nice, and that guy loves to wrestle, which I love too. So it was something else. It was really good.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And the next guy I want to bring up, one of my favorites, Scoot Andrews. I interviewed him quite some time ago, sometime last year. Great guy. I wanted to ask about working with him, teaming with him in Naturally Marvellous. He told me the story of this team back when I interviewed him. So now I want to get your perspective on that team and if you have any good Scoot Andrews stories.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything wrong when you're teaming with Scoot, right? Everyone loves Scoot, so I'm like, okay, so it's gonna be pretty easy now. I got Scoot Andrews as a partner, and Scoot, if we wrestled a lot of times on the same card, never teamed up or anything like that. I'm trying to remember how it had to have been Ron put us together, and then we did really well. And actually we started as baby faces. So that was it. I think we started as baby faces and they were putting us up against these two younger guys. One of them was Roderick Strong and his partner, Cedric Strong. And, Roderick's one of those guys that's just a wrestler's wrestler. And then his partner, Cedric, and we were building it up and they were the heels and we won the match. And then we turned on the fans and it was one of those things because it was quick because we were at the top and then Ron said, no, you're going to turn heel on them. And we turned heel and that's how Naturally Marvellous was basically born. And the best thing about teaming with Scoot is I didn't have to say anything because Scoot's full of lots of words. So I just had to look mean and, let him do his stuff and it worked out great.
Yeah, cool. It's it seemed like a run that on for his behalf he was very proud of as well, and a big part of IPW Hardcore at the time.
Oh yeah.
Okay, speaking of Scoot, 11th of April 2000. This is in my research the first dark match in WWF at the time at the Ice Palace in Tampa. You have a dark match with Scoot on Sunday Night Heat. I assume this is an opportunity the office want to get a look at you both. This is my assumption. I know Scoot was doing a lot of stuff there for the company, working these dark matches. So tell me about the opportunity here and the experience and what the feedback may have been.
Now, what year was that? What was the year on that one?
11th of April, 2000.
Yeah, so that was Kevin Kelly got us into that. So he was our connection. He was my connection with the WWF, and we get to wrestle our first time right in our hometown, and the Ice Palace, and it was just great. And I got to wrestle Scoot, so that was it. We had a great match. It goes a lot quicker than what you think when you're in there for one of those dark matches because you're just trying to fill time and get the crowd going. But we got the crowd going, and we did our job right. That was another one of those things I was told. One of those sayings is the first match is the most important match of the night because it can dictate the whole show. So I was very proud of that one. And anytime I got to wrestle Scoot, it was, we wrestled so many times, we didn't even have to call anything. So it's right. It was one of those things we knew what each other was going to do. We just did it. And we didn't miss anything. So it was great.
Interesting. Yeah. I find these kinds of matches interesting because it's two guys there. I mean, I'm assuming you're both hoping to maybe get signed to the company. So you have this portion of time to get your shit in, but also make it make sense and not just have it just be all high spots and showing off.
Oh, yeah.
How do you go about mapping something out? Like they might say, hey, guys, you got 7 or 8 minutes. And then maybe you might get into the ring and then the referee might tell you you've actually got 4 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple of things you definitely want to do and try until that ref says, take it home. And then once you take it home, if you had anything else left in there, you weren't doing it. And we always knew if it was take it home, we do the go home spot because we'd have the go home spot ready. We could pretty much in the dark matches, you could hit it from basically anywhere. right? And that's what we did. You know, when they said go home, we'd go to that dark match, that take it home spot.
Yep.
And it was usually the you'd have about a minute to take it home, 30 seconds to a minute to take it home, and you did it. And a guy like Scoot, like I said, we'd gone over it and done it so many times, it was no problem.
Yeah, I could imagine any time working with him would feel like a night off.
Oh yeah. And you know, one thing that you were saying was about the whole getting a job thing. I wasn't really too concerned about getting a job, but I always thought Scoot was going to get it, and I was one of those things. I was always kind of disappointed that him and a lot of the guys that I wrestle with, just great talent, and I always thought they should have got a little bit more than what they did, given more of a deal, because I've seen, I'm also a critic of matches and wrestlers and their working styles, and a lot of the guys I've wrestled, they were spot on all the time. So I always thought a lot of the guys I worked should have got better shots.
I agree. It's almost like this crop of guys that I've your guys that from your scene. It's almost like it's such a shame that back then there was only WCW, WWF, and then of course WCW and ECW both go away. It's such a shame that there ended up being only one company and only so many jobs can be fulfilled in that one company, and all of these guys kind of miss out on the opportunity that they clearly are more than qualified for.
Yeah, I always felt me and some of the guys were, whether it's true or not, it's just my ego talking. We wish we could have been back in when the real territories were going on.
Yeah.
Everyone says like the 80s, when the WWF started hitting as the glory days, but I always thought it was like the 70s, the 70s with all the territories, Memphis, Northeast, Florida, Texas, the Pacific, it was, that would have been something to see.
Definitely. Further opportunities take place for you. November 20th, 2000, TD Waterhouse Center in Orlando on WWF Jakked against Raven. How did you find working with Raven? He's a very interesting kind of guy.
Yeah, he was cool to me. He wasn't, I never really talked to him personally or anything like that other than going over our match. But he was cool to me. He was nice. Let me do a couple of moves, and it's one of the matches I'm most proud of. Like that Scott Hall match was the Raven match, and I got to do take his move, the even flow and all that. And I thought it was great. Yeah, and I guess a lot of people I've heard have had issues with him. I don't know if it was personal or whatever, but in the ring he was professional. So. Can't beat it.
Cool. I've only got 3 more of these matches to bring up with you. I just find it the stories behind it or just hearing about them interesting. It's 2 months and 2 days later at the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, Louisiana. You take on Hardcore Holly, who is also a very interesting figure in pro wrestling. How did you find working with Bob?
Well, he was. Hardcore Holly was a different animal. He was great up until the point he did that move where he drapes you across the ring and then he kicks you.
Yeah.
Well, he kicked. And I just remember all the air leaving my body and I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to finish this match. I can't breathe. But we finished the match, but nothing bad, just a hard kick to the solar plexus, you lose all your air. But he was cool, and he said thanks at the end and all that stuff, and that was it. Like they said, it ain't ballet, so
yep,
it was okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
The second last one here of these matches I wanted to bring up. June 18th at the Ice Palace again. This time you're against Test. I've had somebody on the show before that didn't have so many nice things to say about working with him, but you never know. Might have just been a bad day. How did you find working Test?
So I worked with Tess. He was doing the hardcore stuff back then, right? So he was like the hardcore champion or something like that. So I just remember being backstage. He was nice enough in the beginning, and I was like, whatever you want to do, I'm here for you. I remember talking, and I said, I know you do that. I'm like, if you're doing the hardcore thing, throw me outside. I know he used to do the press, right, to the top and drop the guy on the top rope. I'm like, well, why don't you do that to the black banister out there? The one that separates the people from the ring. And he did, and it was great. And then nothing was stiff, but I got a lot of feedback that he was being stiff with me. I'm like, no, he did everything he was supposed to do. And they said that it looked like he really took my head off with his one kick, right? That one finishing kick. Yeah. And I'm like, no, it was right there. It was, my job is to make it look like it killed me. Yeah. I'm sure if he wanted to put it through my head, he could have, but he didn't on that side. But like I had heard that some of the other wrestlers said something to him, and I'm like, I went to Kevin Kelly and I asked him, I said, did I do anything wrong? I just want to make sure. I'm like, I thought everything was okay. So, but that was it, and I said thanks to him. He said thanks to me, and that was the end of it. So, but that was the last time I worked for them, I think, except for lately. And I don't know if you have that one, but since one of the pandemic matches.
Oh, right. So, okay.
Yeah, but that was it, man. Test was seemed like it was pretty cool to me. But yeah, I heard he was talking smack afterwards, which is, whatever.
Wrestling is so weird sometimes. The bubble of the wrestling business is so weird.
Yeah.
The match clearly went fine. You weren't hurt. People are saying that he was stiff with you. You're saying that he wasn't. And then the next thing you know, he's being told that, and now he's talking shit. It's just weird. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I mean, I came in with guys like Emery Hale, Navy SEAL, and the Shane twins. I've been beat up by the best, okay? When they were young, and they were like Todd Shane always says, light as a bag of hammers, okay? So I've taken some pretty good shots, have my bell rung, and nothing in that match compared to anything those guys did. So I thought it was a pretty good match. I mean, I made it look like he was killing me. That was my job.
That's it. And another match I saw in my research, excuse me, which I was excited to ask you about. You worked with Low-Key on Heat in a dark match in Madison Square Garden. So to me, this is probably my most important question so far, because I don't think I've had the chance to talk to many guys who wrestled at Madison Square Garden. So for you as a fan watching the WWF, when you're a young man, MSG, how was it working in that building? Did it feel different? Was it, a big thing on your bucket list? Tell me a little bit about that one.
It was the thing on my bucket list. This was my dream come true. It was the Mecca of professional wrestling. That's where I saw Bob Backlund defending his title. I saw Snuka jump off the cage. I saw Hulk Hogan with the Iron Sheik. That was it. And now I'll tell you something about that day. I remember, so New York's just crazy, right? I'm just this local yokel from Florida. I'm no longer really a New Yorker. I come in. I remember walking to the Garden, and some guy goes, "Hey, you're Mike Sullivan, right?" And I'm like, "You're messing with me, right?" Like, so the fans up there know their stuff. And I remember going inside, and the only thing I cared about was seeing where those guys used to come out, because everyone in the Fed comes down the stage, right, the ramp. I didn't want to see that. I wanted to see where they used to come out. It was the black marble or terrazzo, the black terrazzo floor, and it says it has the MSG logo with the garden in gold on the floor. And I could have walked out right then. That was it. I could have left and I would have been fine with that. But then I got to wrestle low key there. And that was probably, it was one of my 2 best dark matches I've ever had. And besides Scoot and Chris Nelson, who I wrestled as well in the Fed. But low key, they let us just go at it. And I'm sure you've seen Low Key wrestle. He's amazing. Definitely deserved to win the Super 8. It was great. And they thought that when we came back, that's the best compliment to me, is when we come back after it's done. And they said that they thought that we were kicking each other's asses out there, like literally kicking each other's ass. We were trading chops, doing it all. I mean, it was just strong style, and which is the way I love to work. And Loki didn't have a problem with it, and it worked out great. And to finish like that, that was it. I got to wrestle in the Garden, and even the local guys always say, yeah, we did all this, we did this, but you got to wrestle in the Garden. I'm like, yeah, I did. That was it. It was great, amazing. Man. It was a dream come true. And I owe that to Kevin Kelly. Really hooked me up with that. And that was from actually Kevin Kelly and Jim Kettner from the ECWA, the Super 8 guy. He's the one that really got me going with that. So.
Wonderful. Yeah. Kevin Kelly seems to have been a really good influence for a lot of guys back then, and always hear some great stories about him. So just wonderful to hear the story of you in Madison Square Garden. Really cool. It actually made me feel like such a nerd, because as you were telling me about it, like my hairs were standing.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you with your audience, I know you reach a lot of people. If anyone can get a copy of that match, please let me know, because I don't know where it is, but I would just love to have that one. That's one of the ones that I would really like to have. So
cool, bro.
I'll
do some digging as well. I have
right.
access to certain places on the internet where I can find stuff like this. So I'll see what I could do. I'll see if I can find it, but I can't promise anything. But
all right,
I'll do my best. Earlier you mentioned Japan, and you were quite big into strong style. In my research, I couldn't find anything about you working there. So was there never an opportunity that came up?
No. The one time I had the opportunity, it was either that or going to WCW and doing stuff with them. And that came out of the IWA when we went down to Puerto Rico to wrestle. Right. And that was from Dave Sierra got a bunch of us down there. And we were going to be able to sign small contracts and go over there, but I just couldn't do it because of the WCW stuff.
Right. Okay. Well, now I've uncovered that. That's cool.
But I did get to wrestle some Japanese guys. Steve Favada, Steve Madison. He brought a bunch of them over, and that was great. I mean, just getting the chance to work those guys was awesome.
Excellent. And you brought up Puerto Rico. I have to ask you about the experience there. We usually can, there's some things usually interesting happen there, because the crowd is so, it's like it's real.
Oh yeah.
Please tell me about Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so I'm down there, and they have me as I'm a heel, of course. I'm the bodyguard. That's my name, the bodyguard. So I just remember a couple of things, really. I mean, it was great. It was I was with some really great guys, Navy SEAL, Dave Sierra. Who else was down there with us? Pep Prado. Just awesome dudes. I couldn't ask for better, like, roommates and guys I'm hanging out with, right? And actually, and Gangrel was down there, so that was pretty cool too. That's where I kind of got to know Gangrel, and him and Luna actually took me out, and we hung out, ate some lunch and stuff. But we're down there, and I remember walking to the ring the first time, right? And in the States, if you yell at people, they just yell back, right? I just remember yelling, and there was a bunch of kids there, and scaring them, and they all backed up like I was gonna get them, and then I just remember getting, and it's disgusting now, but getting pelted with spit. I just remember I was just covered. I was so beside myself. I'm like, I'm gonna end up killing someone. But that was on the way back from a match. Had some great matches there. I remember one match, so they stick me with these other guys, El Aguilar, the Spider, and someone else, and I think it was either 8-man or 6-man, right? So I'm the only guy there that can't speak a lick of Spanish, and these guys can't speak a lick of English, right? The referee is the only guy I know, Frankie Reyes. He came down with us that can kind of speak a little Spanish, but he was the referee for that match. So I'm like, okay, here we go. So we're wrestling, right? And these guys are lucha libre, right? I got the son of Samson, remember Santo? Well, yes. El Hijo del Santo, the son of this guy, he's like the big star there. And these guys are bouncing around in this 8-man tag or 6-man tag. I don't remember, but all I remember is bodies are flying everywhere. And then they start doing their dives out, right? So they're all doing these crazy dives out there, all these luchadors doing these dives. And I'm like, okay, I can't do any of that stuff. What am I going to do? So I go to Frankie. I'm the only one left in the ring. Everyone else is gone. And they're all on the floor. I'm like, Frankie, what am I going to do? And he's like, just go out there and go get someone. So I'm like, all right, I'll go out there and go get someone. So I just remember going to get him. And it was like the first time I felt like, like Andre the Giant was with these smaller guys. And but it was great. I just remember everyone was bing, 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 and all of a sudden I'm the only one left in the ring, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? And no one could understand anything. It was definitely an experience I'll never forget. So it was pretty good.
That's cool. I wanted to bring it to November 14th, 2001. There was a thing known as the XWF that took place there in Florida. Every time I have someone on the show that were a part of these tapings, I have to ask them their experience or their point of view of the whole deal. Lex Lovett, who I interviewed recently, he had a lot to say and wasn't too happy with that experience. Because he was put with a bunch of guys that I don't think he really was happy having to work with, because it was about making these green guys look good. But you got to work with The Wall and Lenny Lane, who, Lenny's a fantastic wrestler, on the same day. So please tell me about this. Were you hopeful that this was going to be something bigger than what it was, and that it might lead to something? Or just tell me about the experience as well.
Yeah, of course you were hoping it was going to go to something. You had Jimmy Hart there. You had the Nasty Boys, whoever. I mean, there was just superstar after superstar. It was like WCW light, I mean, all these guys were there. Lenny Lane was great to work with. Totally nice guy, really cool. Wanted to wrestle, really wanted to have a great match. The Wall was pretty cool too. He seemed like a nice guy. We had a good match too, but they were trying to make him the big man of that whole outfit. So, it was basically a squash, but he took care of me. Yeah, I remember the Twins weren't very happy with some of the stuff that happened. Lex wasn't very happy with some of the stuff that happened. I think Pep Prado was there with us as well. Maybe I'm not sure if Billy was there. Was Billy Fives there?
Yeah, he was in a cruiserweight,
right?
Yeah.
So I remember one of the things I remember was we're all sitting backstage, and two things. One, Snuka was tried to take one of the twins' boots. He was walking away with the twins' boots on his feet, and I thought the twins were going to kill him. That's one thing. And then the other thing was, I remember sitting backstage, and we're in the locker room. We're all getting dressed, right? And there was a smaller guy there, and Road Warrior Hawk, the Road Warriors were there. So Road Warrior Hawk's talking, and he's just saying how his life wasn't all that great or something, just should be, of where he was and where he's at now and stuff. And then he looked over at this smaller guy putting on his stuff, and he goes, well, life ain't that bad. Just because the guy was smaller. And we all I remember me and the Shanes just started laughing our asses off. And I was like, oh man. It was just one of those moments that's always stuck with me, because I got Road Warrior Hawk just looking over, and he goes, well, life ain't that bad. It was just the moment. And by then we knew what was going on with this XWF, and that was probably like a one and done deal. So it was it was a good blowing off steam moment. So it was great.
That's great. What a fantastic story. One guy who was, I've seen most of those tapings of the XWF. You mentioned him before. You've known him since your early days. Emery Hale. I haven't had the chance to ask anybody about this man, but I just wanted to know, tell me a little bit about this guy.
I met Emery when I went to Mad Dog's Palace. So I just remember we were there for about a month, and what it was Emery had one of his wisdom teeth pulled, and Brett Sawyer would always say, man, just wait. I got this guy. He's like 350 pounds and he moves like 180 pounder. I'm like, whatever, man. There's no way. Because I had seen some of the big guys and they did not move like 180 pounders, And then I met Emery came in and we wrestled, and he dwarfed us. I mean, like, that's when I really knew that wrestling was going to be tough to do anything in or make it anywhere with the size of guys like him. Like, he was the first really big guy I had ever seen, like that other level. Yeah. And I just remember, this guy was doing backdrops for us, and I was able to pick him up for a body slam, do all these other moves and stuff that he'd never had to do, but he loved it, and I will say this, the big guys, my favorite big guys, and the guys that I thought were the most talented were the guys that could wrestle like they were 180 pounds, and that would include the Shanes and Leroy Howard, Navy SEAL. These guys were just phenomenal athletes, huge guys that would just, they just wanted to be in there and wrestle, So Emery was probably the biggest guy I've ever been in the ring with. And he was my first match. We had a tag match with him. And then eventually his partner quit and my brother stopped wrestling. So we tagged up as Bad Medicine. And we went up and down the road. He became my best friend. We were up and down the road for years together. And then once I started getting into Tampa with Ron Niemi and IPW and stuff, Emery had met the Giant and Jimmy Hart, and he was moving up in that direction. There was, I wasn't going to keep him down or anything. I'm like, you do your thing, man. I'll do this. And just one of the best talents ever, and just things didn't work out. So it was always seemed like bad luck, but always great to me. Always took care of me. Like I said, he was my best friend for years, and he passed away in the 90s, but I'll never have a bad thing to say about him. Still probably one of, if not the strongest human beings I've ever been in the ring with. So great dude. And like I said, like truly at his biggest, he was 370 and he was moving like 180 pounder. So.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that with me. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about the man. So Appreciate that. We don't have too many more questions to go here, Mike. Really appreciate your time. I did want to ask you a little bit about, excuse me, the 20th of March 2004. You have a match with Steve Carino for the NWA Southern Heavyweight title, which you win in St. Petersburg, Florida. Was this a big moment here for you to have won this championship? Obviously, Steve was everyone, sings his praises too. So how was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. And it was like one of the 2 times I've ever been blown up in a match. So I was sucking when, and I mean, it was phenomenal. I feel like that was one of those old school territory matches,
yeah.
He was the bad guy champion traveling to all the territories, and I got that shot to wrestle him. Nothing but professional. Everything was right there. Everything was spot on. I mean, it was like clockwork. And if your wrestling career, you get to do that more than a few times, then you've done something in your career, get to wrestle guys like that. And I had that. I got to wrestle, work him, which was just awesome. AJ Styles, I got to wrestle, same thing, what's his name? Who's the one that's, I'm sorry, I'm bad with wrestlers nowadays. And
all right.
I got to wrestle with Jimmy Rave, and he just passed away. He was pretty good. But there was the guy that tapes his hands. He's in the WWE, and then he went to AEW, just wrestled Daniel Bryan.
CM Punk? No.
Yep, CM Punk.
Is it?
Yeah. I got to wrestle CM Punk. Those guys like that, and low key guys like that. And then the guys I wrestled came up with. It's just, I was so lucky to be in the ring with that kind of talent. And a guy like Steve Carino was right at the top of that list.
Yeah.
I'm blessed, whether I did anything or not, or made anyone remember me. I can say I've been in the ring with some heavy hitters. So.
Absolutely. And another thing I wanted to ask you is, because a lot of the guys that are from your area that I had the chance to interview, a lot of them did have opportunities to work with TNA. Some didn't stick around too long because the pay was rubbish. But
yeah.
In my research, why do I not see Mike Sullivan's name working for?
Well, I was on my way out then. And
right.
I was in the starting to be, it was either keep wrestling or become a firefighter. And firefighting had always been my other passion long before wrestling. And it was time to make that change. I knew I wasn't going anywhere, doing anything. And I wasn't wrestling as much. I know, when I watched your interview with Billy, where he said he kind of started tapering off and wasn't wrestling as much. It just makes it's a little bit harder every time if you're not in there all the time. So it was just the change I needed to make for my life. And but I didn't hear very good stories about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it seems with a lot of the guys from your area that just got to a time where it's like, I've got to make a decision now to do something else with my life and focus more on that. Still wrestle every now and then, but and it's completely understandable. So how did it make you feel, I suppose, winding down from your time in the ring and, slowly but surely not wrestling as much anymore? Did you miss it at times? How does that make you feel?
Oh yeah, you miss it. I had 3 retirement matches, and you just, and like I said, I have good friends in the business. So I had, Ron Niemi would ask me to do something every now and then Steve Madison would ask me to do some things, and I knew they would always take care of me in there, and I'd get to work the guys I like working, and the guys I came up with. So I didn't mind it, just doing spot here and there, a spot match here and there. But a lot of wrestlers that I've seen and have heard stories about where their lives don't turn out so well is they don't have that other thing to go to, or it's too late, So I was lucky to get out when I did and find a career like firefighting. And there's actually a few former wrestlers that are firefighters down here in Tampa, so the Tampa area. So it's worked out for each one of us, and a lot of the other guys have found their callings after wrestling, and we've just been blessed, been able to move on and not have too many regrets.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Very close to the end here, Mike.
Okay.
In my research, this was the last match. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a steel cage match at a show called What's Old Is New, again for IPW, on January 12th, 2019, teaming with Steve Madison against the Dirty Blondes. Just want to know if this was the last match and if you will ever wrestle again.
Yeah, and it was great. And I did it. I wanted to make sure I got to do one that my son would remember. So my son was 9 at the time, and I just wanted to make sure he would be able to remember a match with me. He had seen me earlier on do one, but this one, like I knew he was going to remember, and I couldn't ask for 3 better people to be in the ring with the Dirty Blondes, Brian Brock, and Mike Patrick, and Steve Madison. And Steve's one of my best friends. The other 2 guys are great. I've known them for years, and it was about as old school of a tag team cage match as you can get. And it was great. And I don't ever care to walk in the ring again. I'm not saying I won't, but if it ends on that note, I'm okay with it.
Wonderful to hear. That is wonderful to hear. Last question now before my final segment of the show here, Mike. Just want you to have the chance to let all of your fans, the old IPW hardcore fans, anyone out there wondering about Mike Sullivan, let them know how you feel about their support over the years, and plug anything.
Got it. The IPW fans were the best fans on the planet. It was like a mini, almost ECW like culture, and we couldn't have done it without them. They would come and pack out Crystal River for us. They would follow us from St. Pete, Tampa area, go all the way up there. We'd go down to Miami, the Miami area, and face Billy and all those guys when it was IPW versus them down there. And the fans would follow us. I mean, to follow independent wrestlers like they did, they just made you feel like you were in the Fed, or in Japan. I mean, that's how great they were, and we couldn't have done it without them. And I'll be forever grateful about that. That's one of the reasons why I like being a babyface, because I could actually, show my appreciation and not yell at them.
Good call, bro. All right, Mike Sullivan, time to get to our final segment here of the show. 5-second frenzy is what it's called. First question here for 5-second frenzy: who is your favorite pro wrestler of all time?
My favorite pro wrestler of all time, I have to say, is Dusty Rhodes. Yeah,
excellent choice.
Dusty Rhodes.
Very good. I know it's a tough one because you had a lot of good opponents over the years, but who would you say is your favorite person to work with, your favorite opponent?
Man, you're going to get me in trouble. I can't even say that. Any of those guys that you've already mentioned, but I know this is not 5-second rule, but I got to say okay. Also some of the guys you didn't mention, Buck Quartermain,
of course,
and Pep Prado, and Steve Favada, along with Scoot and Chris Nelson and Lex and Billy and all those guys, and the Shanes, of course.
Of course. Excellent. If you could pick one match, what would you be your favorite match that you've competed in of all time?
My favorite match, I'd have to say, is probably, man, I can't even say the Garden one because that's not it. My favorite match would have to be, oh man, you're gonna get me in trouble. Well, a couple stick out, but one that definitely sticks out was there was I want to say a 6-man or an 8-man in the Expo Center, and it was great. Okay, nope, my favorite match of all time, I gotta say, if we're talking straight IPW, it's got to be me and Buck Quartermain winning the belts against the Shane twins. We literally got a standing ovation after that match because they were beating the hell out of us for about 16 months, and when we finally won, the Crystal River was packed, and they all stood up and just gave us a standing ovation for like 10 minutes. It was the best thing, that's ever happened to me. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Okay, moving away from wrestling now. Favorite book?
Favorite book? I am not. I like science fiction, kind of fantasy stuff. So I was always at an early age. Robert E. Howard. He writes the Conan the Barbarian novels. Right. The original novels. It's pulp fiction, but for my money, you can't beat a better writer for that type of stuff. And I've always loved it.
Excellent. Favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show, I'd have to say, of all the TV shows I've ever seen, is probably maybe the $6 Million Man.
Cool. Yeah. Very good choice. Favorite film?
My favorite film, of course, Star Wars. Changed my life.
Wonderful.
Changed my life when I saw it. Yeah.
And
I got to see it in the movies when it first came out, so it made a big impact on me.
That is very cool. Last one here for the arts. Favorite musical artist or band?
Rush.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Yep. Very good. Favorite food?
Pizza. Definitely pizza. New York pizza.
Very good. Very, very popular answer on our show. Favorite place to eat on the road?
Oh, definitely the Awful House. Waffle House. You would call it the Awful House. That was our favorite. That or Denny's, but I like the Awful House a little bit better.
Very good. Yes, that is usually the number one answer. Okay, third last one for 5 Second Frenzy. Favorite alcoholic beverage? If you don't drink, just favorite beverage in general. Favorite
alcohol beverage is definitely any type of really good Kentucky bourbon.
Nice. Excellent. Very good. Second last one here, the naughtiest one of 5 Second Frenzy. Favorite female body part? You see a good looking lady, where will Mike Sullivan's eyes go to first?
Boobs.
Very good. And the last one here, I don't think you've said one curse word on this show, but if you had to have a favorite curse word, what would it be, Mike?
I'm a former Navy sailor, and I'm a firefighter now, and a former wrestler. So I've said just about them all. But I've been well behaved here. My wife told me to be well behaved, but my dad made me laugh one time when he called someone driving a shitbird, and it just has always made me laugh. Shitbird, and I never say it, but it's still my favorite one.
That is a great answer. Well, Mike Sullivan, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's a little late there now. I really appreciate the fact that you took the time and helped me out a little bit and started this interview a bit later at night because I'm just terrible in the mornings. But really has been great and a joy to hear some of your stories, learn about your career, and get that confirmation from everyone that I've interviewed that you're a great guy. So I just want to say I really appreciate your time, sir.
Well, I really appreciate you shedding some light on a great time in wrestling down here in Florida. I think it's overlooked, and I can just say that I've wrestled with some of the best talent that's ever stepped in the ring, and I'm talking about the local guys around here, and we appreciate you putting some spotlight on it and taking your time to actually do that for us. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And the next one on the list to tick off is Steve Madison. So I'll be
he's the best.
Thank you again, Mike. Really appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
And everyone out there, thank you for checking out the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network. I'm Karlifornia. This is my new friend, Mike Sullivan, and we will see you down the road. Thank you.